Hi everyone, this is Allison and welcome to All One Sun. This discussion today is going to be about awakening to the shift. And what is a shift? Well, a lot of people may have different ideas, I don't know, but I think most of some people talk about the shift of what we're actually happening right now, which I call the cycle. And for me, there is a difference. There is a difference between a shift that we're actually experiencing each day, probably every different minute or so or whatever. And then there is a different shift where you actually are jumping into, well, it's the same thing, where there's a little different shift that we're constantly jumping into different dimensions. And there is, some people are talking about the shift as a whole as the cycle, the ending of the cycle, that where everything is actually changing right now. I don't really call that, I guess you can call it a shift. It's all just names, words, but it's really just to describe a change or whatever that we're, the difference of what we're going through right now. However, and again, if you're wondering, where do I get my information from? I get my information from my personal experience with my higher self, if you want to call it that way. I mean, some people may say God, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to say my higher self, okay? And my higher self is pretty much my soul, my spirit, like that is still very much connected to the divine feminine, okay, the energy of love, which is the creator of all things, just like how the woman is here also the creator of all things, and through the woman nothing will come. Okay, it is the same thing, same as above so below. Anyway, that's a different story. I don't want to get on that right now, but in any case, the shift, awakening to the shift. I saw that the reason why I'm actually doing this discussion is because I saw somebody post, and I'm actually a part of that group, and it says awakening to the shift. And I thought, wait a minute, we're actually constantly going through the shift. I wonder if when they say the shift, if they're actually talking about just, like the shift that we're actually going through, or the shift where they're saying that we're going to a lot of us are going to shift with the earth, with the planetary shift that's going on. I'm not exactly sure where that is coming from with them. So I'm going to explain to you my understanding of what the shift is and what I've experienced in my spiritual development, okay, as a conscious spiritual being. And as a conscious spiritual being, not only you start to experience stuff that usually cannot be explained. But as you connect more with your spiritual self, a lot of that is explained to you. And a lot of it comes little by little, because I remember when I was going through my reawakening, I wanted it all to come to me just right away. And, my spirit was saying, no, you can't. You can't handle all of it right away. And I was so frustrated. I wanted it all to come now. And they gave me a little, and I say they, but that's another story. They gave me just a little bit of glimpse of what it would be like if they gave me a little bit too much information, if you want to put it, at a time. And yes, there was like a lot of information coming at me, and I really could not keep up with the information. And it became overwhelming. And that was, I'm sure, just a little itty bitty, glimpse of it. But it was enough for me to understand. And, I believe that happened because that was the only way for me to actually, when I experienced it, now I'm like, okay, I understand. Okay, and through a lot of the things that we actually go through, no matter what anybody say, you have to literally really experience it to have a full understanding of what exactly that is going on. Okay, I like to say that I talk about things that I really that I personally have experienced. And if I say that it's from somewhere else that I hear, I'm going to say that because you know, I can really actually talk about something that I've personally experienced, and that is what I'm going to talk about. Now, we all experience the shift on a very, and little itty bitty shifts on an everyday basis. We all do. But we don't notice, we don't realize, we're not conscious of it, that we're actually experiencing a shift. We're not conscious of it. And that's the whole idea of being conscious, is that now you, excuse me, now you are aware of what is actually going on. That's it. You're conscious. And as you become more and more conscious of what is actually going on in, around you and in the spiritual environment, now you can operate differently and more powerfully with that experience and with that understanding. And that's the whole idea. And some may say that is actually a shift too, is the shift of our consciousness. So that might be another shift, and that might be what they're actually talking about. But okay, I'm going to explain to you when I really understood that, and really have the understanding about the shift. I had these gentlemen that were staying with me, and you know, I had a dog. And my wonderful, you know, really wonderful dog. And it was getting late, and it was time to actually wrap it up and go to bed. And I know they were getting ready to go to bed too. And I believe the other one gentleman, he was in one room, and the other gentleman, when I left, he was actually, when I was going to bed, he was actually getting ready to go to bed too and lock up. So anyway, I was in my room, and I was reading, and I'm not sure exactly how long I was there for, you know, reading. All I know is that I started to hear a barking, and I wondered, I just kind of dismissed it, so, you know, I just heard it in the background. I just figured it's a dog, a neighbor dog or something like that. But then I hear it again, and I'm like, whose dog is barking like that? Because it's not something that I usually hear in the neighborhood, like, you know, a dog that's just barking. So I just, whatever, I just kind of like, okay, blew it off and went back to reading. Then I'm hearing it again, and I'm like, okay, what is going on? So then I started to listen, and then lo and behold, I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds like my dog. So I got up, and I looked through the bedroom, I went to the bathroom, looked in the closet, and no dog. So I'm like, okay. So I stepped out, and I went into the living quarters to search for the dog, and no dog. Kitchen, everywhere, bathroom, the other bathrooms, no dog. And I'm like, okay. So I woke my visitors up, and, you know, I'm like, okay, do you know where the dog is? I went into the backyard. I looked all around. I looked for the dog. I didn't see the dog, and I'm like, okay. We're all standing there going, okay, this is a strange thing. Where's the dog? And I asked them, did they put him outside? And they're like, no, because I remember all of us just, you know, I come to think of it like now, I'm like, you know, I kind of didn't remember where, but anyway, I if I remember correctly, we did all go to bed, and, you know, and the dog was there. And I think it was kind of like a situation where he didn't want to come to bed yet, and I just kind of, because every time I go to my room, I bring him into my room. But if he doesn't want to go at that time, I would leave him alone until he wants to. Then he'll come scratching at the door, and then I'll get up and let him in. Okay? But anyway, anyway, so we were looking for the dog, and I didn't hear anything at that time. And then it was like, okay, there is a bark. Finally, we heard a bark again. So it's like, where is he? Well, what is that? So I went outside, and I looked again. I even went around the corner of the house to make sure there was a fence there, to make sure that that fence was closed. And I looked, and I'm like, hey, it looks closed. So, you know, it was really dark up that area, so I really didn't want to go all the way up. And so this is Florida. There's creepy little things around, so I didn't want to go far up, and it was really dark over there, so I didn't want to go up there. So, but it looked closed. You would tell if it was open, so it looked closed, so I didn't really bother. And I went around the other side of the house, which is also dark around there, and that gate area is always closed, and there is a lock on it, so I know that he wouldn't really go through there. But anyway, so we're like, wow. So I went back inside, and I hear the dog, and I hear him barking again. And finally I said, wait a minute, he's outside. But then I'm like, I think he's at the front. So I went to the front of the house, and I didn't really see him. And then as I went out further, because he was out there, I guess, for a while barking, then here he is coming along, running. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So then I went over to the gate from the outside to look to see if it was closed. And yes, lo and behold, the gate was closed. It was closed. It was shut, and the latch was on it from the other side. And I'm like, what? So my friend was saying, my friend said, wow, they're very spiritual too, and it was like, wow, that was the biggest shift. And I'm like, is that what a shift is like? So that was my first experience of a shift. Because the dog was inside. We all knew that. And then all of a sudden, now the dog is outside the gate, outside of the house, outside of the gate, outside. So it's like, and a lot of the times, little weird things happen to us, and we scratch our head and we go, what was that? And we don't understand it. But we don't realize that what we went through is a shift. And the shift is pretty much, and I don't want to really go too far, but I'm going to go as well. The shift is really where we're actually jumping from similar dimension, because everything that is happening right now is happening all at once. Everything is happening all at once. And oh my gosh, how do I explain this? If there is, and what you're doing is shifting from, the shift might be just very, very simple, just a little thing you may notice. Like you know that you had this cup over here, and then you didn't move it, and then all of a sudden it's over there, and you're like, how did I get there? I know I didn't. So it was just little things like that. Or you might be walking down the street, and then you walked past this yesterday, and then this wasn't there, and all of a sudden you're like, when did that get there, or whatever, or something of that nature. But sometimes it's a little thing, sometimes it's a big thing. And sometimes you just lose stuff, like something that was there before, and it's gone, it's lost. There's no getting it back. And sometimes it's just really misplaced from somewhere else to somewhere, and it all because there was that different dimension. It's just off just a little bit, So you want to say dimension, and that's the best way to put it, is because you are going into parallel things that are. They say parallel universe, but it's everything, the past, present, everything, future, past, present, future, everything is happening all at once. So when you aligned yourself up with one of those different futures or pasts that are actually happening, depends on which one you line yourself up with, your vibration, your frequency is lined up with, that's the one that you are going to jump. Ever since that when I really realized what the jump, I used to make fun and say that I am going to, and this is exactly what I'm talking about, when you realize what you are can do, you can actually jump consciously. And that's this whole thing about being conscious. You can actually jump from one dimension to the other consciously by simply just changing your frequency. And if you know that, and if you have that much control, then you know that. And see, this is the thing that they don't want us to know. This is the thing, and this is the power that we have as human beings that they don't want us to know. This is truly what consciousness is about. It is waking up to the power that you have within you. Okay, being really conscious about the environment that is around us. Okay, it is real. I've experienced it, so I know, and that's not the only time. And sometimes it's actually a feeling. I remember when we used to live in another area in Florida, and I was going up the stairs, and all of a sudden I felt it. I felt that there was a shift. I knew something was different. Sometimes you actually don't even see it, but you can feel that there is a shift. There is a change in the dimension. You can sense it. You can change it, or that something happened to change. And the elites, if you want to put it that way, they're always doing something to try to change what is actually occurring in our cycle here. But there's nothing that they can do about that. They might be able to throw things off a little bit here and there, but they really can't stop what is occurring right now. They really can't. And that is actually what's going on right now. We are all waking up to our consciousness, to really what is actually going on. And see, while we, all of these things that we're going through, all these distractions, all these things, and race war and all these race, they're important, don't get me wrong. We need to actually discuss all these things. So there's a whole lot of things that are going on all at the same time, because we're going through the cycle. So we're being shaken up. We are being shaken up. The world, everything is being shaken up, because we need to be shaken up, because we have to change. And Mother Earth is changing. The whole vibration of the planet is changing. So we have to, either change or jump or get off the ship, one or the other. And so there's a lot of us that are dying out, in certain ways, and things are happening to one way or the other. Nobody is ever left behind. And there's another thing that I actually come to, that nobody's ever actually left behind. But anyway, I don't know. I hope that kind of helped. In a way, I don't want to go too much into this, because I understand the level of how much we can actually absorb. So anyway, I hope this was helpful to you in explaining the shift and what we're actually experiencing right now. But that's just a really small understanding about our shift that we go through on a daily basis that we do not understand. There's a much greater shift that is actually going on, and this is the one that affects all of us as a whole. And we all have our individual shift that we also experience based on our individual frequencies. So I hope it was helpful to you. Thank you. Much love and much peace.